the idea that food should be comfort, I actually think is kind of a problem. I think that a lot of people have this impulse to read what they're eating as like a form of safety or like comfort or love or something, but it's not. It's food. It's nutrition. It's like the thing it's the fuel you put in your body.
Food needs to be not comfort, it needs to be nutrition. But the second thing is not eating comfort food so that you can actually relish the comfort food when it comes around, right? So that's more about relativism in a way. That if you just keep having the same thing again and again, then you're really not going to enjoy it to the same degree. And you really want that intensity, right? Hi guys, and welcome to the Weekly Bustle. Today we want to try something else, as we have been doing on this podcast for almost more than a year now. And usually me, William, me, Mudassir, me, someone else would just send voice notes to each other, and we would like you to be part of that conversation. But after talking to a lot of them, and I realized that maybe that is not the best way to feel like the conversation is happening. So William wants to try something else. He wants to see that if we just jump on a call, and if we just start walking and we start recording, hopefully the background noise isn't that bad, then maybe that will be something more interesting. So I said, you know what? This is what we do here. We'll try it. We'll see if it works, and we'll take it from there. So today, William is here again with us, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So I wish you well, and hopefully something good for your ears. Nothing really sharp in the background that really bothers your ears. So good luck and enjoy our conversation. William, how are you doing?
Hello. Just really in the spirit of the thing that we're doing right now. I'm out here walking my dog and sort of trying my best to hold my phone and also tie this bag of dog shit.
So, William, I do have a topic.
Okay.
And it is actually a topic that you and I talked about before. And I want to see if you're still interested or if you're still curious about this, because I remember you told me once when we were talking about you going to, was it North Carolina or South Carolina?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. So you were going to South Carolina to visit your partner's parents, and there you told me that you didn't eat well. It was a lot of heavier food, and then I asked you what do you eat in general, and you told me some very shitty combination of food in my eyes, which was very like broccoli and greenish. So and apparently, like before I judge you and like the people judge me, apparently you also agree. You say that. No, I do this on purpose because I really want to enjoy food, and to enjoy good food, I need to know what bad food is. So why don't you explain that methodology to me? Then why would you go through that yourself?
Okay, well let me just clarify something. Just in the very off chance that my partner's parents listen to this podcast somehow, the food was not shitty. It was very delicious, but very heavy and very different from the kind of stuff I eat day to day. Okay?
Yes.
So Mary, if you're hearing this, I love you. The food was delicious.
Oh, just to clarify, Mary, if you're listening, just to clarify, I did not mean your food was shitty. I meant William said that he eats food in general, which I consider shitty, and what he ate in South Carolina was very different. So that's the clarification I want to do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that cleared up, yeah. Okay. So I don't think that I would describe it as shitty. So for an American, when I think of shitty food, I think of like hot dogs and canned pork and beans, or like the Taco Bell dollar menu or something like that. You know, like food that is filling but devoid of any like really nutritional usefulness. And so what I usually am eating is like relatively plain chicken, some spices and seasonings, but we're not going crazy with like fancy dress ups on this chicken. We usually just have like steamed broccoli, like some rice or something, and that's like 5 or 6 meals a day. No, that's crazy. 5 or 6 meals a week.
Oh, okay, thank God.
Yeah. So I would not describe that as shitty. I would describe that as nutritious, but very basic,
and
like
bland.
It's not necessarily bland. Bland is really a question of like how we seasoned it, So it's not like we're like boiling the chicken and eating it without any salt. There's usually like some spices and stuff involved, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
you
it's
know,
devoid to me, South Asian. It is devoid of love. That's how I would
oh,
describe it. Right. So I would not say it's not good food. I think it's the healthiest food there is, to be honest, because
yeah,
this is the kind of food that makes you live longer. I don't deny all of that stuff. I think there are health, nutritional, everything benefits in that. It just doesn't feel like home. It doesn't feel like a big hug. That's what I will try to
ah,
say. That it doesn't feel like a big hug. And when I look at food, I look for comfort. I look for food that makes me feel warm inside, that makes me feel fuzzy inside. And our food in our culture is always that kind of food, which is a bit more on the spicier side, a bit more on the oilier side, and a bit more on
yeah,
the. We have this word in Urdu we call barkat, which basically just means substance. So the food has a lot of substance. That you think that when you make
okay,
it at home and someone comes and suddenly shows up unannounced, you will have it. You will have enough to even cater to them, for example. But when you're making something like steamed broccoli, steamed chicken, and rice, it's usually very portioned, right? So if someone shows up, then
yeah,
you
for
might have to
sure,
do the whole exercise again. But with us, we just take a big ass pan and we make it and we just go like, you know what, there's leftovers for tomorrow. So if someone shows up unannounced, you're like, hey, I still have food. Why don't you eat with me? So that's where my mentality comes from. So I completely agree that this food is healthy and probably you're gonna live longer than me. That is an absolute fact, right? Especially because you go to the gym with your mesh T-shirt on, and no wonder that you eat this kind of food. That
I
you are
gotta
living.
this. I gotta clarify. I don't wear the mesh shirt to the gym. At the gym, I don't wear any shirt at all. The mesh shirt is just
Ooh,
for the neighbors.
ooh.
Okay. So you said some interesting stuff there, actually, because I think that idea of like food being like a comfort thing, like it's something that is meant to kind of make you feel like you're getting a hug from like somebody who really loves you or something.
Mm,
And I do have a version of that. Like when I was a kid, we used to go. Like my mom was from the South, and we would always go down to her. We'd always go down to her parents' house,
yeah,
and every morning it was like mountains of bacon and like this like southern uh, like sausage gravy that's like very very salty and very very heavy, really really savory. And you'd slather, just like dump like boatloads of it onto like these huge homemade biscuits that she would make. And like that is in my mind. I'm like, that is what like a hug in the form of food is,
I
and
I'm
I
getting
and I
saliva in
like
my mouth just thinking about this.
and I love that shit. It is good stuff. But I can't eat that all the time. I mean, if I try to eat that every day, that's like I'm never gonna get out of bed. It's that's I'm just gonna sleep constantly. So I mean, so I think that idea that like food should be a source of comfort is the idea that food should be comfort. I actually think is kind of a problem. I think that a lot of people have have this impulse to read what they're eating as like a form of safety or like comfort or love or something, but it's
Yeah,
not. It's food, it's nutrition, it's like the thing that it's the fuel you put in your body so that you could
yeah,
get up and do stuff.
yeah,
And I mean, for me, I had a version of that comfort for like that like food as comfort for a long time, where it was like all through my 20s, it was like every day at like 9 p.m. I would go to McDonald's and I would buy like $35 in freaking like deep fried garbage. And I'm not even kidding when I say I would literally lay there in bed, high as balls, watching The Simpsons and just eating all of this food. And I was like, I feel so good right
that is Saturday night right there. That is
now.
Saturday night
that
right
is
there.
that's like Tuesday night. God, Saturday night, throw in a pizza, add some Taco Bell into the mix. I'm a happy boy. I like. But and during that time and during that period of my life, that is like where I got comfort from. And I was a big boy too. like I was probably 100 pounds more than I am right now. Like just as a matter of course, but like
Just in
that's
twenties, in
the
your 20s. So you're talking like what, 5 years? 8 years
Mm,
before.
yeah, let's closer to 10, but we don't need to tell anybody that. uh, you know, but I mean, for me, there was an absolute like connection, like that there was an indistinguishable connection between food and comfort, and and breaking those two things apart, like comfort is its own thing that can come from many places and sometimes does come from food, but is not inherently related to food, has like just made me a way healthier person, and more importantly has made me able to really really enjoy that food that is the comfort when it comes around. Like we might do like my grandma's like biscuits and gravy and stuff, I don't know, maybe once every couple of months, and I just like relish in it, man. Like it is like the best meal I've ever had in my life. But like, I mean, I didn't know that when I was a kid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't tell. It was just too like it was too commonplace. So I mean, like, yeah. I mean, I think that like for you know 6 out of 7 meals, 6 out of 7 dinners in a week, I don't want it to be like the best food I've ever had. I want it to be like adequate food, like food that tastes good
Mm.
enough, but it's not like it's not winning any awards or anything. It's not turning any heads. It's just nutrition, you know.
I get
So
what you mean. But I would like to challenge you a little bit. So we have to talk about two things here, right?
challenge.
So one thing
Yeah,
is that food needs to be not comfort; it needs to be nutrition. But the second thing is not eating comfort food so that you can actually relish the comfort food when it comes around, right? So that's more about
yeah,
relativism in a way. That if you just keep
sure.
having the same thing again and again, then you're really not going to enjoy it to the same degree. And you really want that intensity, right? So you want to
Yeah,
have that intense feeling. So I get that. That if grandma's cookies and gravy comes once in a few months, it's going to be amazing. But if grandma's cooking every single day, or you're cooking something for grandma every single day in her memory or whatever, suddenly it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like it has that emotional attachment to it because you're just having it every single day. So that
yeah,
is there. So let me tackle one thing at a time. Let me go back to the first part, and I think I completely agree with you, especially the things that you mentioned. I've had this whole experience myself. In September, I this recently I'm the highest I've ever been in terms of weight, and I'm struggling. Why?
okay,
Well, the answer is pretty clear. I have a daughter in the house. I am working like my ass off in hundreds of different things. So workouts and nutrition is really taking a back seat right now. They're like, hey, if you have time, please squeeze us in. And I'm like, I can only do 11 p.m. in the night, and then usually don't want to do anything at 11 p.m. in the night. So it usually gets like pushed off to the next day, and then the next day, and then it only happens like once a week or something. So I get that. I get health is a concern. But
yeah,
when in September, or not in September, in April, when we came back from Japan, I was also on my high weight, but not as high as I am right now. But I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll just go for no takeout April. I called it no takeout April or no takeout May or something like that. And we didn't have
uh huh,
takeout for a whole month. And I tried my best. I think only once a week I was eating something. And that was only because I was at the office. So I was physically on location. And there, my wife said, you can pack a lunch and everything. And I was like, it's too much effort. It's okay. Once a week is allowed. But the rest of the time, I don't eat anything out. We cook all the time in the house. And I enjoyed it so much because after that, I just couldn't eat out anymore for a few
okay,
months. Like I couldn't eat out because that made me realize the difference between good nutritionist food, which can still be comfort, compared to food that is just empty calories, as you gave an example yourself, eat takeouts.
mm-hmm.
And now we're at a point that I now enjoy takeouts again, and I'm realizing this again that no, I don't enjoy the takeout. It's just that takeout is maliciously more addicting for some weird reason. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
realized with takeout, that it's just addicting, especially companies like McDonald's and Taco Bell and everything are notoriously famous for like literally showing addiction-like symptoms for people who stop eating them after a while. So there was even research done on this. So there is something happening here that I don't know. But for any other food, any
Yeah,
local mom and pop store, any short, small artisan restaurant, I still have the same feeling that I crave, and I don't like the concept of craving because I hate that. I should eat because I want to eat, but there should be no craving happening, right? I really could go for a shawarma right now, and that's how I feel every single day or every other day. I'm like, then there's a problem there. So that's what I would like to challenge on, that you can have nutritionist food in the house, which can be tasty,
uh-huh.
which can be comfort. Doesn't need to be doesn't need to be the base. So this is me moving to the next. next part of the point that you made. It doesn't need to be basic, just because when we I enjoy the relish. So because I love to cook a lot, so my wife is now responsible and in charge for sending me Instagram reels of stuff that she wants me to try to make, and then I make those
Hmm.
things. And those things are always something different, something new, something fancy, but still it's made in the
Yeah.
house. So it's much more nutritious than we try to eat out. It's much more financially plausible as well. Like it's more nicer on the wallet, and
Hmm.
it's also more healthy. So like it
Yeah.
tastes well, it tastes like takeout, it doesn't cost as much as takeout, and it still gives you that comfy feeling of, yeah, at least I'm not eating salad and boiled chicken. Not putting a finger on you, but I just that's what I see here in the Netherlands as well, because what you described is exactly how the Dutch people are really famous for their dinners. They literally have a concept, they call it AVG, which means AVG, which means
Uh-huh.
aardappel, which is potato, vlees, which means meat, and groenten, which means vegetables. So that's a typical Dutch dinner that you have
Uh-huh.
potato, boiled potato, mashed potato. You have some form of meat, pork, chicken, beef, and then you have a lot of steamed or boiled vegetables like broccoli, courgette, which is I don't even know what courgette is in English, or is that English?
It's not English. It's got that et thing on the end, but I don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
it's that thing that looks like a cucumber, but it's more of a it's a cucumber with like a hat.
Oh,
I forgot the
oh
name.
yeah, it's a cucumber with a hat.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Do you know like, it has more like more substance than a cucumber? So you almost always cook it. I really there was the English word I completely forgot. They all call it courgette here, and that's why I completely forgot about it. But that is the thing. Like so they eat those kind of things, greens and everything, and they are very healthy. I literally look at 80-year-olds here in the Netherlands. I even look at sometimes 90-year-olds, and they're walking around like they're 60-year-olds. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
my God, my dad is 65 and he doesn't get out of bed properly without holding his back or something. So we are doing something wrong, and the Dutch are doing something right. So that's fair. But then I challenge that my dad gets to enjoy life every single day by eating the food that gives him comfort. Well, I don't think AVG gives them comfort because they themselves claim, like you do, it's just nutrition. So it's really about
Uh-huh.
reframing the mind, right? So you guys, I'm assuming you guys, but most of the Dutch people, they go like, it's just nutrition. It's just fuel for the body. It doesn't need to have
Uh-huh.
any emotional attachment to it. Well, for us on the other side of the world, we're like, your taste buds are there for a reason. We were in tune to sugar since evolution began. That's why right now it's very difficult for us to leave sugar behind, although it's very unhealthy for us, because we would want to pack up as many calories as we want. So taste buds are there for a reason, and we want to enjoy
Yeah.
that evolutionary habit of ours, even if you don't need it, because our brains and our culture did not evolve as fast as like the technology around us. So it takes some
Yeah.
time. And maybe in the
I,
near future or in the far future, we might also think the same way, but I don't want to believe that I would.
I mean, look, I'm not, yeah, I'm not really disagreeing with you. I mean, we have like, I think that I think that there are a couple of points worth mentioning though that like you know you were talking about how you're working on a million things and you're doing a million things uh, and you don't have time to exercise, and now that might not be like fitness might not be a priority for you, and that doesn't really matter. That's a personal, that's like a personal thing, like
Yeah.
where a person's priorities are. But like, how long are you spending putting that meal together? The the meal that is like ostensibly making you feel like alive, like your life is worth living or something. How much of your time is that taking up to prepare?
Yeah,
Because
it does take time.
because
Yeah, but it is time well spent though.
sure, but see, but that's where the relative nature of this thing comes in, because to me, I enjoy cooking, but I don't want to devote an hour and a half to it every day. I want to. In fact, the fact that I have to eat, like that is a thing that must happen, means that I'm going to do it all the time, which means that that hour and a half, like if I spend an hour and a half or 90 or 60 minutes every day cooking something, before long, I'm not really going to appreciate that process of cooking. It's just going to be another chore that I have to do. And on the other end of it, sure, like I might enjoy the meal a lot. That's great. But like I enjoy lots of things. Like food is not the only way that I get comfort and I get satisfaction in life,
Yeah, maybe
So
that's the
like,
difference between you and me. That is the difference between you and me.
You you got nothing else? You got
I
nothing. You got nothing else going for you? What's the deal, dude?
my daughter's listening to this, like thinking, "What the hell, Dad? What the hell?"
I mean, I think the you know the point the point I'm making is really just that like this is a matter of like priorities, and like what
Yeah.
you're saying is that like I you know you value the process of cooking, you value the food that you eat being something that is like remarkable and new and interesting, and I value those things too. But kind of like taking a step like a level up from that idea of like I don't want to eat good food every time because I want to appreciate the good food that I make when I make it.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't want to spend my time doing the same thing every time because I want to appreciate the time I spend doing that thing. So like I don't
Yeah.
make fancy
Yeah, I
bread
get that.
every
I get
meal.
that. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
making bread. That's a great thing. But if I did it every day, I wouldn't notice how much I enjoy it. So I've got to I've, I've got to not cook I've got to not cook stuff that challenges me every time. Like most of the time, I need to make something that comes together in 20 minutes because it's just a
I,
meal,
I
And with
don't know
all
what
that
that
extra,
means. I don't know. I
what do you
don't know.
mean?
I don't know what that means. I've never had a meal that I made in 20 minutes. Never in my life.
Really? How?
Well,
It's so
it's a
easy.
labor of love. It's a labor of love. We look again. I love that we're going a bit far away from where we want to go, so we want to bring it back. But I love the tangent already. It's a labor of love. Uh, in the Western world, labor is very expensive. You guys, your the amount of effort you put in is really directly related to the amount of things you can do on the other side, right? Well, we come from a place where we used to have homemakers, and homemakers' job literally was to just make your home, make your food, clean the house properly, take care of the kids. So for them, putting hours in cooking was not a problem because they were like, "Ah, we have nothing else
Uh-huh.
to do. I also will be watching TV." So from there, you suddenly have these intricate labor of love creations that will take time, that will take effort, and then when you eat it, you're really going to appreciate it, not just because the taste is so good, but you know the effort that went into it. Right? Throwing a
Uh-huh.
one pot pasta up, it's going to be easy, sure. It's going to be efficient, sure. I'm not denying it, but it will not be, for me, it will not be the same level of appreciation I'll have for it because I know it was cooked in 10 minutes and it didn't need anything to clean. But my God, cooking something that takes 2 hours and then it takes you 30, 40 minutes afterwards to clean it up. When you're eating that thing, you go like, my God, this was effort, right? This was something I chose to do, and not
Uh-huh.
just for myself, but also for the people around me. I chose to do this, and then you feed off not just the food but also the appreciation you get from that labor of love. So for me, those things are very attached, right? So my mother-in-law does the same thing. She prepared food for my sister-in-law's birthday, and she said, since morning I've been cooking this food. And she's like, I'm tired. She's like, why is it Afghan food so difficult? And I said, it is, but that's why it's so tasty. That is exactly why it's so beautiful and so amazing. And that's why
Uh-huh.
I cannot stop eating your food whenever I'm eating it, because I know it comes from a labor. It is a labor of love. It comes from a place of effort, and that suddenly makes
Mm-hmm.
it more appreciative. And can I do that
Uh-huh.
every day? Yes. If I can compromise between health and everything, that it's still a bit of a healthy food, but still takes some time to cook, still takes an effort. I see a win-win, right? You get to enjoy good food right now. The example that I gave of no takeout April, I actually lost a lot of weight during that time. So the problem is eating bad, greasy food with no nutritional value, yet which is very
Sure.
fast to eat and very like just gives you a high, versus eating food
Mm-hmm.
that does give you a high, but that is more nutritious, more effortful, and also teaches you to appreciate those things. My wife always tells me that I feel like I compromise a lot in this relationship. I feel like I do a lot in this relationship. And I said, whatever you do will be trumped by the fact that you get warm food 2 to 3 times a day, every single day. Right? You have a partner who's willing to provide that to you every single day, right? And
Uh-huh.
nothing can be compared to that. And she hates that. She's like, no, you're gonna stop cooking now. I'm gonna help you cook because this is a stupid trump card. And I say, it is a stupid trump card, but you don't see it. You don't see the effort that goes into it. So maybe that is where I think I get my comfort from. Not just the fact that it tastes really well. Sometimes I
Uh-huh.
also make pastas that take hours because I make everything from scratch and then I enjoy it, and it's still not as good as our South Asian food, but I still enjoy it a lot. I'm like, my God, this was really tasty. So maybe it's the
Uh-huh.
effort rather than actually the taste of the food.
Okay, well, I have a lot to say about that, but first I need to stop and marvel at how it's taking you several hours to make pasta from scratch.
So there's a,
As an Italian, that's like a 45-minute job. I don't know what
yeah,
you're doing wrong.
yeah. To be honest, that's a little bit of exaggeration going on there. I don't make pasta from scratch, of course. Yes.
Okay, yeah, move those goalposts, Ahad, no problem. Um, so, I mean, look, this is ultimately a subjective thing. I can't know what your internal experience is, but I am skeptical. I'm skeptical of your claim that you can do that can be your experience every day, and that it's actually being appreciated by you or the people around you. Like, if you do that every day, uh, like, what was your mother-in-law is like, oh, I'm tired. How, like, she put in all this effort, and like, I'm skeptical that, like, the degree of appreciation that deserves is actually doled out. Like, see, all right, so check it out. What it's saying is, like, Riverside is like reconnecting, but it's so what I was trying to say was that I think I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that like, what you're saying is that people are, if the quality is good, people can appreciate it perpetually. And I'm just like, I'm skeptical that that's actually true, like, in practice. If you have somebody who spends all day making an incredible meal, and they do that every day, and every day the meal is incredible, I don't think that if they do that
uh,
every day,
uh,
if they if they do that every day, I don't think that the people can. I don't think that human beings can appreciate it. I think we get used to it
yeah.
every time. I'm basically calling bullshit on your theory that people can appreciate something really good every day. I'm
No,
trying to do it diplomatically, but I give up on that.
yeah. I understand your point of view, and I do agree with it till an extent. I genuinely think people do take it for granted. That's exactly an example that I gave with my wife, right? So she also doesn't think that it's that much effort because she doesn't do it herself compared to me,
Uh huh.
right? My dad takes my mom for granted. Everyone in the house took my mom for granted, for example, because my mom used to cook great food every single day. But you see it, and the way you see it is when my dad is eating food from someone else's hand, he always goes like,
Uh
"Yeah, your mom makes it better," right? And the fact that
huh.
he knows that, the fact that he knows that, although he eats her food every single day, tells you
Uh huh.
that it is an implicit thing. But I agree with you; people are not aware of it, and I think that's where my mindset comes from. That I am quite aware of this. I think the labor of love that goes into the food when you make it, the labor of love that goes into the food when you eat it, it really it really is something that can fly by if you just let it fly by in life. And I think that appreciation comes from me, maybe. So I maybe it can you can be right that it's not something as a given just because the food is made through hours that's going to be great. But for
Uh
example,
huh.
if I go to my local artisan bakery myself
Uh huh.
and I take a bite in their bread of the day, I go like, my God, I
Uh huh.
have walked through this place in the night and I see him working in the night, running the dough at 9 p.m. during my walks. So this bite that I just took right now, it just has more meaning attached to it. But maybe that's just me then, right? That's just me putting meaning into stuff that doesn't necessarily need to have meaning. So maybe my claim as a universal can be bullshit. That I am willing to concede on that. But I feel like to me it
I
adds
mean,
more value than
I
just nutrition.
but yeah, I think that it can, but I think that that's by contrast. That's a value by contrast thing. Like, you just talked about how, like, you walk past this artisan bakery every night on your walks, and you see this guy working, and then one day, in contrast, you have some of the bread. So, like, most days you don't have the bread, and then but you see it and you think about it,
Well,
and
yeah,
then one day you do have the
yeah,
bread, and it's amazing.
yeah, yeah, no, I get it. I get it. Like I don't have his bread every single day, but I do have bread in general every single day. But that's from a different bakery, which is more closer to my house. So maybe
Yeah,
I don't feel that bakery to be that good because I have it every single day. But I don't see them working. What I see is a corporate conglomerate that just opens the freezer and everything is already ready made there, and then just put it into the oven, and then they take it out and it's fresh. While in this particular case, I see the guy working his ass off in the night. So I'm like, shit, maybe it's more. I agree with you. It could be contrast. And this goes back to the initial conversation that we started like 40 minutes ago, which was that you need to
yeah.
have shit those valleys to be able to enjoy those peaks. And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm taking it for granted that I'm eating incredible food every single day, that I believe it's incredible every single day. But maybe it could have been, it could be more if I just add some shitty food in the middle. And that is something that is something my wife does do. She tells me to make salmon
Uh-huh.
and veggies sometimes, and I hate that. It's just taking vegetables and taking a salmon and then throwing some seasoning on it and then putting it in the oven for 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
That is a meal that can happen under 20 minutes, but that still takes 25 minutes of cooking. So
Uh-huh.
preparing is separate. That is a meal that every time I have, I go like, why am I having it? But that's my wife's choice, not my choice. So it is a compromise at the end of the day.
I think that's interesting because I would look at that meal and say, "Oh, that was good enough. Now what do I have time to do?" you know?
Yeah,
Like, oh, we
yeah,
did
but
oh,
yeah.
like I mean, your wife wants the salmon and vegetables, and so you make the salmon and vegetables, and now you have got free time. Why don't you sit down and like watch an episode of The Office together and laugh or whatever? I don't know what you guys watch over there. Uh,
What do you mean over there? What is
yeah,
this
I don't know. Listen,
blatant undercurrent happening?
I'm in the United States. Everybody outside of our borders is like is weird. That's what
No, I
that's
agree.
what.
So what I hear from you is not really just the peaks and valleys, but it's also the fact that it's not just about peaks and valleys, it's about efficiency, right? It's about the fact that
Sure.
I don't want to do this. So going back to the concept of priorities, right? So
Hmm.
priorities for you is not cooking. For you, it's doing something else. Maybe it's watching Office with your partner, right? But for me, it's cooking. I put in the effort and I enjoy it, and my wife enjoys it, and she tells me this was great food. It feels like my day was worth it. Right? It feels like
Uh huh.
everything was worth it, and that's exactly why I'm waiting for my daughter to grow old so that she can eat my food. Maybe have a whole table full of young ones and old ones, and I make food in the morning, breakfast in the morning before everyone starts breaking out to their days, and they all go like, "Oh, great food, Dad." And that's my aspiration in life because for me those are my priorities, right? So
Uh
for
huh.
you food is nutrition, and I think that's how to think about like how to wrap this conversation up. It's that you are looking at that lens of efficiency. You're like, for me it doesn't matter, it's just nutritional value, and the higher nutritional value food I can make, the faster. For me that's a win and a win, right? For me it's like
I think
nutrition is good. Yeah.
I think it's a little reductive. I think that's a little reductive of my perspective here because I do like cooking. And when I get to the day, when I get to a part of my day where other important things are done, and I say, "Oh, look, I've got 2 hours now that I could do A, B, C, or D," and all of them are kind of appealing to me. And one of them is to make an interesting meal that I haven't made in a long time, or I want to try something and I want to put the effort in. That's a decision that I'm going to make mindfully at that time. I'm going to decide, oh, this seems like a thing I would like to do purposefully. And I have the same experience. Like when Michael comes home from work or whatever, and I have spent the last hour, hour and a half making something that I'm excited about, and he's like, "Wow, this is really good." That feels great. Like that's a
Yeah.
great feeling. But it's only one of a variety of feelings that are that are similarly great. Like so it's I mean it's not just efficiency. It's almost I would argue it's closer to like it's closer to something like mindfulness where like I don't like defaults rob things of their uh of their potency.
Yeah.
If the default is every day I spend an hour and a half cooking something, I'm not going to enjoy the cooking as process as much if just because it's like part of a chore I do every day. And the people I cook it for are not going to enjoy it as much as a labor of love because it's a thing that they just expect me to do. And I'm not going to enjoy the other things that I'm also interested in because I have cartoned off this part of my day to this one specific thing. So I mean, I'm not really I'm not arguing for efficiency. I'm arguing that sometimes efficiency and the days that I choose to just do something efficient for food make the days that I put a lot of energy into food way more uh, sweet, like way nicer.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So It makes sense to me. So it's a combination of efficiency plus priorities. That's how I hear it, right? So when you say if I've ticked off everything of my checklist and now I have time and I go like, okay, what can I do between A, B, C, D, and D is cooking? You go like, maybe I'll cook today. So you're talking about mindfulness, but how I hear it is also priorities. So yes, you are
Hmm.
mindful, but you're also prioritizing. And for me and a person who, for example, cooks every single day, because they might make it into a chore, but it can also be reframed as priority that if I don't cook in the
Uh-huh.
house, then we'll have to order out. And ordering out is not good food for me, for my partner, for my daughter. So I would take up the responsibility to cook and try to cook something really good so that we don't get bored of cooking in the house all the time. So mindfulness will still be there. It's not just default setting, but I do get you because sometimes I remember my mom making food that I was like, uh, I wouldn't really enjoy lentils 3 days in a row. And she's like, yeah, but this is what you get today, right? Because she's tired,
Uh-huh.
right? I get that
Yeah.
completely. But for me, for example, my wife says to me a lot, let's make lentils. And I go like, that's too boring. Do we really need to make lentils? Shall I make something else? So for me, the example changes because I'm more like into the mindful element of it. If I'm putting in 2 hours of my time, and because I live in a capitalist society where my labor is pretty expensive, I go like, that is a lot of money that I'm wasting on lentils, on dal. So
Hmm.
so maybe let me make something much nicer. And it's okay if it takes longer, but at least I get to make something that I enjoy. So the mindfulness will still be there. And I think you can have mindfulness every day. I think that's what people try to say, right? So the default setting is, yeah, I completely agree with you. The default setting is bad. You don't want to be default. But you can be mindful every single day. It doesn't need to be something that is just born out of novelty. That when it is a novel
Uh-huh.
experience that only happens once in a while, then you can really, really be mindful on it. Because at the end of the day, it just feels like priorities. To you, those three things before cooking are much more important than cooking. For me, cooking
Oh, no, no,
is
no.
number one.
That
No,
isn't
no, no,
what I
not I'm
said.
not I'm not talking about ABCD here. I'm talking about those three
Okay.
things, three, four things that you checked off your list, and then you were like, now I have time, and what do I choose between ABCD, right? So those
Uh-huh.
things that you checked off your list were more important than ABCD. That's why you did those
Yeah, yeah.
first. That's what I mean. So for me, check cooking comes in those lists, in those checklists. So when I'm done with cooking, then I go like, okay, now I have a couple of hours. I can watch TV. I can play some Steam Deck. I can do something else, but those come after. So for me, that tick is there. It is not a choice because it's something I like to do and it's something I have to do, just like some things that you have to do. But you can choose to be mindful about it, right? That doesn't need to be that just because it's a thing that you have to do that you can't be mindful about it. So that's I think the pushback I would give on that part
Sure.
of your argument.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm definitely not saying. I mean, I think that the really important insight in what you just said was, you know, if you're considering, if you're considering cooking as one of your priorities before you get to A, B, C, and D, that for me is like exercise. Exercise is in that list of priorities before I get to
Exactly.
A,
That's a
B,
good
C, and
example.
D.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and so it's like, yeah, I mean, like if I get to the end of the day and I have not exercised, well, the odds that we're eating, you know, like canned tuna and bread have gone up considerably. You know, like that's that's just the reality of the situation. Um,
Yeah.
but but those days when I have when I have eaten the canned tuna and bread, boy, do they make the homemade pasta and like lasagna and like artisan bread days so much better. So oh
Yeah,
man.
I get it. I get that. I get that. And I think this is a very good example because what for you exercise is for me what cooking is. And what for you cooking is for me what exercising is. Because for me, it can be A, B, C, D, and I still choose not to do it because I want to play games instead. So it is something that is
Hmm.
very low on my priority list. So just like we started off, right, when we were talking about this. So I can now sense the difference that it's about being mindful.
Yeah.
It's about being making it more prioritized. And yes, if you have shitty canned tuna and bread, the next day when you make a homemade pasta, it's naturally just gonna feel nice. And that happens to me too sometimes. That, for example, the day I don't feel like cooking, the day it's like because for you as well, just because exercise is a check mark that you have to do, there are days that you don't do it, right? There are days that you just miss it.
There's never a day that I don't do it.
Oh my god! Then how does the likeliness of canned tuna go up if you haven't done your exercise?
Well, because so let's say that I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I have 12 things that have to get done on my list, and one of them is exercise, and the day has to shuffle. just like because of just like the realities of like life and uncertainties and the way that life organizes itself and whatnot. And some days I'm exercising at like 9 a.m. and I'm getting that done. But other days it's at the end of my list and it's not getting done until like 7:30 p.m. And on those days, my opportunity to do something exciting for food has basically gone out the window. So I'm doing
Ah,
exercise every day.
okay, okay.
Uh,
I hate
yeah.
you more already. So that's that's not good. But okay, that's fair. That's fair. So for me, it's like no. There are days when shit happens, which is more important than cooking. Those are like those 12 things, and then I just go like, you know what? I just don't want to cook today. I can't cook today. And again, I think there's an element of mindfulness to it. That hey, I'm not gonna just
Mhm.
throw something together just because I want to eat something right now. I will not do it. I don't enjoy that. I want to enjoy my cooking. So if I missed the mark, that I couldn't make it happen, work came up, life came up, now we order out. We order out something that we like. We order out something that might be unhealthy relatively, but it's fine. At least we're going to have some good food. We're going to enjoy the food. For me, that's priority. So that also happens sometimes that I just order out, and my wife says, "Well, I can cook pasta," and I'm like, "No shit, no, you're not. We're not cooking pasta in 20 minutes in this household. We're gonna order out, and we're gonna wait 40 minutes like goddamn idiots for the food to come, and then we're gonna eat good food. Or it could have been done. It could have been done faster."
I get the sense that your wife is perhaps an appropriate counterbalance to you, and I think you should invite
Yes,
her onto this podcast with us,
she is. She
and
is. She.
maybe
she.
maybe her and I can talk some sense into you.
She is my muse. And you, William, are a bad influence in my life. When I hear from people who never miss exercise in a day, I just don't feel like talking to them anymore because this is bullshit. It's really bullshit. I don't see someone working out every single damn day because doesn't that let me turn it around. Doesn't that take the joy out of exercise? Doesn't that take the
No
joy out of
way,
exercise?
no way, because I do calisthenic exercises, so I'm always doing different stuff.
Oh
Like
my god.
today I went for a run. Of course, I got this like back injury, so like my exercise kind of sucks right now. But I'm still doing it, and it's a little different, you know. I do it.
Yeah.
It's a little different every day, so I'm always I'm constantly changing things up. Speaking of good food, can you hear me chewing this Twizzler? Do you guys have
I
Twizzlers over there?
yes, but I don't eat sweets.
Hmm,
Mostly.
you're missing
Mostly.
out.
Yeah, I am because I cannot control myself. So when I do eat sweets, I go overboard. So I wait once a month, and then there's a word for it in shooting, right? And I used to see it in cartoons. It's called open season. Yes, it's
Okay, yeah.
that day is open season.
Uh
So
huh.
then I just eat whatever I want, how much I want, and there are no holes barred for that moment.
Yeah.
so so I get it. I also try to do calisthenics,
Hmm.
uh, but I miserably fail at it. So there's this program me and my brother bought like 4 years ago when I was about to get
Hmm.
married, and he's still at it. It was a program of 2 to 3 years, and he's still at it. He hasn't completed it either, but he's doing it much better than I do, and I'm still on level one, and there are like 5 levels.
Hmm.
And I bought this thing 4 years ago, and I'm still at level one because I would do it, and then I would stop, and then I would continue. So I would start from scratch again, then I would do it, then I would stop. Then I start again, and now this time I decided I'm not going to start from scratch. I'm going to continue
Uh
from my
huh.
day 90, which is 3 months into the program, but I'm woefully
Hmm.
unfit. So whenever I do an exercise now, it is just so intense
Hmm.
for my body because I'm woefully unfit that I feel like throwing up. And it takes me like 4 days to recover before I can do the next one. And you're supposed to do these 3 days a week, 3 times a week, but I do it once a week because I'm like, my body can't handle this. Because generally, I feel like passing out after that exercise because that's like you're 3 months into that exercise, right? Into that
Uh
program.
huh.
So they expect you to be a reasonable amount of fit now so you can handle the intensity. But I'm just
Yeah.
stubborn. I'm like, I haven't lifted a finger in the last 3 months, but I'm going to continue from this point on now because I'm done. I'm not going to restart the whole damn thing. And then life happens. So I am trying to stick to it. I do miss exercise, to be honest with you. I really enjoy exercise. I do think it's not my priority, but I do want to make it my priority, not because of any fitness goals, but just that you just feel nicer afterwards. You feel fresher afterwards. And I really do think about that a lot in terms of eating, in terms of no sugar, no coffee, no cigarettes, no
Hmm.
tobacco, no alcohol, no nothing. That's also one of the reasons maybe I love food so much because there's nothing much that I do besides
Uh
besides food. So that's why I really
huh.
think for my body moderation is key, and I think exercise is also a big part of that. It's just you have to take the time to do it.
Yeah. you know, huh? We've talked about this before. We have some disagreements. We disagree on this a little bit. That's okay though. You know, for me, part of the reason food is, I'll switch back to something very basic. Is kind of like what you were talking about, like the open season on sweets. Uh, if I make something very delicious, I'm gonna try and top it the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. You know what I mean? So like, there's a degree of like consistency available in like protein, vegetables, starch. Like, don't overcomplicate it. Change the flavors around a bit. Use some curry. Use some like South American spices. Play around that way, but like, let's not go nuts here, because if as soon as I start doing something complicated, I start getting more and more and more and more complicated. And the more complicated you get, just the heavier the food tends to get. Not always, but
Not
like
always,
it
yeah.
tends that way. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, so I mean, like, if we do something really exciting and delicious once or twice a week, that's also helping us keep from going like just like balls to the wall. In terms of like unhealthy choices. You know.
Yeah, but that again goes back to the mindfulness question, right? So for you, that's
Mm-hmm.
important. You know yourself enough that you think this is really your balance. That I will have this consistent, simple food 5 times a week, knowing that I am able to handle that consistency, so that those 2 days I can go a little bit overboard in terms of my creativity and make something that I know that I might not be able to digest well, and I might think it's a bit more heavier than normal. So that works for you, for example, right? But for me, on the other
Mm-hmm.
hand, it's more like I cannot digest food. My day just gets ruined if my taste buds are not satisfied that day. So for me, it's not just feeling good in my tummy. Also, it's a feeling good in my heart and my mind. And then for me, that's something very, very important. I'm like, why should I ruin my day just because I want to be efficient, or just because I want to enjoy the food more the next day, or just for whatever reason? I don't want to compromise on that well-being. So that's where my mind goes, right? That's my priority. That's why my mindfulness is, that I know myself enough to know that, hey, that 2 hours a day is something very, very important. And it's not like it's every single day. Sometimes, like sometimes you make food, as I said, our food is of substance, right? So sometimes you make food
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot, so that can be leftovers for the next day. So then the next
Mm-hmm.
day you might not have to cook much, but the first day you cooked between 2 to 3 hours, and then the next day you're like, hey, shit, we have leftovers, party. Now I have more time on my hands. So that can work as well. It really depends on what works for you. Before, I used to cook every single day before my kid was born, because I was like, I can't manage it. But after my kid, I'm like, you know what? It's okay if I skip a day every here and there and have some leftovers, because
Mm-hmm.
because life changed and priorities change. So I think that is where I would like to close it, on this element of understanding what works for you, and what why it works for you. I think more than the what, it's also why it works for you. So I really understood why you think this way, and what value it
Mm-hmm.
brings into your life, and why I think the way I think, and how it brings value to my life. Is there certain places of improvement? Sure, but at least we know the why.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Um. I. You know what though? I'm gonna insist that we end this podcast on a cliffhanger. I don't think that we need to wrap this up like a neat little bow, like a neat little sitcom ending where everything resets.
No, it
Like
can be just like
I
how
think
two people, yeah, just two people talking,
like
and then
I th-
suddenly the decline drops.
no, I'm saying, look, I mean, I'm saying, you know, like I think that I think there's a challenge. I think there's a challenge in here. Probably, I mean, probably for both of us. I don't know what your challenge is to me. I'm too full of myself to hear what anybody says to me. But I know what my challenge is to you. I'm just saying. I think, like, why do you have so many of your like self satisfaction eggs in one basket? Like why can disrupting this one thing totally ruin your day? Why don't you have like a half a dozen things? So if one fails, you got like five other things that can give you a good day. You know? So here's what I think. You should say, "Hey man, why don't you just fuck right off?" And then be like, "Anyway, this was the Daily Basel. See you guys next week."
I lo- I don't even know what to say.
you, you're you're not gonna publish this one, are you? You are not gonna
I,
publish this one, are you?
if my team is able to make it work, it is going online. The question is who listens to it, right? Do you ever share these podcasts with your friends? That's what you need to do. They need to see that William. They need to see that
I
William
do.
talking.
I
Yeah,
I do send it to friends. I do send it to friends. They
exactly.
listen to it occasionally. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you want. So this is how we will end it. No worries about that. We will end it like this. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. We laughed, we had fun, we had some exercise in. I think we clocked in almost 6,000 steps. I think this was a win, win, and another win. So for me, it was a wonderful evening here with William. William, I hope you had fun as well.
Absolutely.
All
As
right then.
always.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you next time.